So it's been 5 months since we got an action button on the iPhone. What's everybody doing with it? When it first came out, we all went wild with experimentation. You could have a shortcuts folder, change what it did depending on the orientation of the device. I tried that too. And really the possibilities were endless. But I'll be honest, after 5 months and trying to program multiple shortcuts and folders to the action button, I've landed on one use case that I finally use every day. I'm going to show you 3 runner-up possibilities for the action button, which I do find useful, and I've gone back and forth, but there's really only been one use case for me that finally stuck. Now, I have a theory about the action button. I tried all the wild things. Depending on device orientation, it can open the camera, or if it's upside down, you can mute and unmute. But I find that cognitive load has a big part to play in the action button. If I ever found myself wondering what's going to happen when I press this action button at any time, I ended up not using it. I would just go to whatever app or manually to whatever shortcut I might have in a widget, and I didn't use the action button. Now you can program it to show a folder of shortcuts, and I used this for a while. It was pretty useful. When I pressed the action button, it would show me things like my iCloud passwords, quickly jump to that. I could run a HomeKit scene, show captions on my Apple TV, and a couple other things. Using a shortcuts folder is cool, but I find that it's still not as useful as just one single action for the action button. There's probably a reason Apple called it the action button and not the actions button. I know that seems like a distinction without a difference, but whenever it does more than one thing, I just found myself not using it as often. But there are 3 single actions that came really close to being my default. The first one was acting as a clipboard saver via action button. So here I have a shortcut programmed where it will get whatever is on my clipboard if I've copied it on my iPhone, and it adds it to a bare note titled iPhone Clipboard. You can also program this to work directly with Apple Notes, and I show how to do it in the video I'll link above and in the description. But because no third-party app can have access to your iPhone's clipboard, this is the best way of kind of having a running log of everything you've copied. So you'll see here, if I go to my Bare Notes app, I have one just called iPhone Clipboard. And the shortcut I have programmed is just 2 steps. It gets the clipboard, and I have an add to bare note action, and I've typed the name of the note manually here in the title field. Now if I go over to my action button settings, I can set this shortcut as the action button. I like how it also shows me what folder the shortcut is in, so I know this is the right one. Now whenever I hit the action button, whatever was on my clipboard will be added to that note. Let's say I wanted to copy that URL and then add it to my bare note. I'll hit the action button, and you'll see that link is now appended to that bare note. You can also use this kind of mechanism for things like saving Threads posts until they add a bookmark feature. I can copy the link to a post here, I'll hit the action button, and now that link is saved and appended to that same note. So while that's really cool, using a clipboard manager on a Mac is much more useful because you can quickly recall your latest pace, and it can just live in the menu bar of the Mac, and there's not a quick way to use the action button then to retrieve the things you've copied to that note. But use case number 2, which is pretty cool, is the live translate feature via the action button. This was added with iOS 17, and if I go back into my action button settings, you can set it to translate, and now the action button will just be a live translator. So if I say, where would you like to go to dinner tonight?
¿Dónde te gustaría ir a cenar esta noche?
The animation is really cool too. If you want, you can go to the Translate app and change what language the action button will translate to by default. Let's say I'll choose French, and if I do it again, what restaurant would you like to go to tonight?
Dans quel restaurant aimeriez-vous aller ce soir?
That's pretty cool. If I'm ever traveling, or maybe you speak often with someone that speaks a different language, that live translate feature is really cool. And it automatically speaks the translation when you use the action button. So using it as an iPhone clipboard saver is cool, and live translate. Now number 3 almost stuck as my default, and that's setting ChatGPT to the action button for voice conversations. So if you have the ChatGPT app installed on your phone, you can create a shortcut that's one action using the Start Voice Conversation with ChatGPT. Then if I go to my action button settings, I can choose that shortcut for the action button. Now it does have to open the ChatGPT app when you trigger it, but it's almost like you have a much smarter voice assistant than what's already built in on the phone. For instance, maybe you want to find out, if I have a frozen breakfast sandwich, how long should I put it in the toaster oven?
For a frozen breakfast sandwich, a good starting point is to heat it in a toaster oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 to 30 minutes. If your sandwich has instructions on the package, it's best to follow those, since the exact time can vary depending on the sandwich's ingredients and size. Make sure it's heated through before eating. Would you like tips on how to check if it's done properly?
And you even get the transcription of the voice chat right here in the app. If you ask Siri something like that, how long should I cook a breakfast sandwich in the toaster oven if it's frozen?
Here's what I found.
It's just not as helpful. Now, ChatGPT can't do things like control your smart home, send messages, or other built-in Siri functions, but for normal queries, it's really good. How far away is the sun from Earth?
The sun is about 93 million miles away from Earth. This distance is also known as 1 astronomical unit, or AU, which is a measurement used to describe distances within our solar system.
And if I ask Siri, how far is the sun from Earth?
The average distance between Earth and the Sun is 92,958,412 miles.
You know, it gave me the answer, but honestly, I prefer ChatGPT's explanation. And while you'll need to fact check it sometimes, ChatGPT might be good at recipes too. Can you give me a good recipe for chicken parmesan?
Sure. Here's a simple and delicious recipe for chicken parmesan. Ingredients: 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, salt and freshly ground black pepper.
So programming the voice ChatGPT to the action button means you can have 2 voice assistants, one better at some things and the other better at controlling your smart home, I guess. Those were 3 close contenders, but what I've actually programmed the action button to, it's much less exciting, but I find myself using it multiple times a day, pretty much every day. Yes, it is another shortcut, which I have right here. It's a single action shortcut, and it has the action seek forward by 120 seconds on iPhone. That's it. The action button just skips forward 2 minutes whenever I'm listening to a podcast. I know, it's not very exciting, but it turns out to be really useful. So I'll go back to my action button settings, set my forward 2 minute shortcut to the action button. Now whenever I'm listening to a podcast, like Primary Technology, you can subscribe at the links in the description. And I do use Apple Podcasts as my podcast player. I know other apps like Pocket Cast and Overcast, they let you program more than 60 seconds skip forward time, but unfortunately, Apple Podcast maxes out at 60 seconds. And if you listen to podcasts, ad breaks are now much longer than 60 seconds. I used to be a big Pocket Cast user. It's a great app, especially if you're on Android, but I just find the design and the features coming to Apple Podcast, especially the beautiful new transcripts feature coming in iOS 17.4. If you want to learn more about that, I'll link a video above. But now I can skip forward as much as I want, programmed in shortcuts, so when I'm listening, and you can see that every time I hit the action button, it's seeking forward 2 minutes instead of the normal 60 seconds. Yeah, that's it. That's what I use the action button for, because what I find to be most useful is when I don't have to think about what is the action button going to do at this time versus this device orientation or not. I know that if I just want to skip forward in my podcast, I just hit the action button. It's that simple. Also, one of the places I listen to podcasts the most is in the car, and rather than having to fumble around for the skip forward button, even on the lock screen, I can just hold the action button down without even looking, and I know I've skipped forward 2 minutes. But I really want to hear from you. If you have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, what are you using the action button for? Did you just keep it as a ring silent switch, which I did that for a while too? Did you keep the does something different in every device orientation feature, or do you have a shortcuts folder? Tell me down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And if you do want some inspiration on lots of different shortcuts for the action button, I'll link one of my videos above here. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I do shortcuts pretty much every week. I have an entire playlist of shortcuts. If you want to learn about Shortcuts 101 all the way through advanced automations, I'll link that playlist right up here. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button before you go. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.